The replacement of wet floor, which is the floor under the tanks. Tools you will need for this job: safety glasses, knee pads, rubber gloves, 2 creepers, a bottle jack, flashlight, 2 battery-powered drills, 5/16 inch bit and a 1/4 inch bit, a 5/16 and 3/4 inch Christmas tree bits, 1 handheld Phillips screwdriver, a jigsaw, crimper and stripper, putty knife, tin snips, battery-powered air-angled gun, pipe cutter and crimper, buzz saw, hammer and chisel, pry bar, sonic crafter, 2 hole saws, 1 2¼ and 1 5 1/2 inch, a caulking gun, or if you prefer an air caulking gun, you may need a crowbar and a sledgehammer, and finally a foam gun. Materials needed for this job include metal plumbing tape, 2 1/2 inch crimp rings, sewer hose plug, 10 metal screws of 5/16 self-tightening, 1 replacement floor pre-cut for sewer pan, 4 tubes of black caulking and 2 white tubes. There are 2 types of floor, a right and a left. Face the sanitation compartment, and if the hose slot is to your left, then it's left-handed, and the same to the right. Make certain you have the correct floor before starting. As you watch this DVD, you will observe that both techs are working from the same side. This is for filming purposes only, as they usually work from both sides at the same time. You may need to combine 2 steps of this DVD and work from each side at the same time. Now, step 1. Take a hammer and tap the floor. Listen for the sound of a soft spot. If detected, this means replacement is needed. Step 2. Pull the tank door up by removing 2 screws from the bottom. Prepare a means of holding the door up out of the way. If the coach is equipped with furnaces, remove these vents first as shown. Step 3. Cut the overflow pipe that goes through the floor with a hacksaw blade. Remove from floor. Remove the bracket that holds the pipe and swing assembly outward as shown. Remove the tank bracket. Next, remove the door seal by cutting where joined. This is held together by strong glue and must be cut completely through. Pull from the bottom and partially up each side as shown. Step 4. Jack up black and gray tanks approximately 1 1/2 inches. Hold those in place with the metal plumbing tape. Please look closely for screws going into the tank from the right side, which occasionally happens. These must be removed and the holes in the tank carefully repaired to stop leaks. Now let's move to the driver's side. Step 5. Remove all items from the sanitation compartment. Disconnect all electrical wires from the fresh water tank and tie them up out of your way. Here's how to remove the water pump. After cutting the hoses, use the air angle drill to remove holding screws. Unplug the red and the black wires. Step 6. Use a buzzsaw to cut the hole in the pan around the drain pipes. Some models will have a 1/2 inch diameter drain pipe. Pull the door seal as shown. And now, back to the other side to remove the tank. Step 7. Before pulling the tank, be aware that in 2004 and 2005 models, this tank is square and requires jacking up the tanks above it on the passenger side to accommodate the tank going back in. As you're about to see, most tanks are tapered towards the driver's side. Removing the tank is accomplished as shown and takes both techs. Step 8. Removing the old floor requires a tech on either side. Earplugs are recommended with this and several other steps. Use the sonic crafter or hammer and chisel to remove the floor, whichever works best for you, keeping in mind that all must be removed completely from the rails. All old caulk must also be removed from the rails. With all flooring removed and the rails cleaned, it is suggested that cleaning up the old materials will benefit you greatly with the replacement procedure. Step 9. On the passenger side, cut the bracket legs from the back side as shown. Be careful not to cut completely through these legs. After cutting part way, bend them out of the way of the tank and the replacement floor. Now, cut the front and the rear panels and bend out of the way as shown. On 2010 models, the rear panel can be removed by removing screws, but the front panel will require cutting and bending. Step 10. To prep the replacement floor, cut excess backing from the sewer pan cutout. Slightly bend the metal sides of the end to be inserted as shown. Insert the floor from the passenger side and push as far as possible. Move the jack under the rack that holds the black and gray tanks on the driver's side and raise slightly to clear the floor. Occasionally, you may need to use a wonder bar or crowbar in certain areas. Move back to the passenger side and, using that sledgehammer, carefully drive the floor in until it's completely inside the support railings. Step 12. Secure the floor to railings with the 5/16 inch screws. Use the foam gun filled with polyurethane foam sealant to seal the floor on the top side, and caulk the bottom completely to ensure against road moisture being able to penetrate the floor from the edges. Bend the rack legs back to original position and screw on braces to hold in place. Use the 5/8 inch Christmas tree bit to drill holes for the drain hoses. Push hoses back through the floor in the order shown. Caulk from underneath. Place pan inside the cutout. Center the sewer drain outlet and mark on the pan. Remove the pan and cut proper hole in pan as shown. Once hole is cut, caulk all around. Put the drain plug in place and insert the short screws and tighten. Put pan in place and hold with screws as shown. The last step is to smooth out the caulking. Step 13. It is now time to reinsert the fresh water tank. Cut off the old water line crimp with the buzzsaw. Take off water fill and drain. Reseal these and replace, then tighten. The narrow end of the tank, of course, goes in first. Push the tank halfway in place. Screw out the overflow and vent pipe in order to reseal those and put them back in place. Finish pushing in place, and when finished, remove metal plumbing tape to allow holding tanks to lower back into position. Now mark and cut out for the overflow pipe. Drill a hole for the overflow and the vent line. These are reconnected with a 1 1/4 inch coupler. Caulk underneath around the overflow. Bend side rails back into place as shown and repaint them. Insert fresh water tank side blocks. Now, do not drive these all the way to the floor. Once they're in place, put foam on top only and caulk around the overflow pipe on top. Reinstall the overflow line clamp. Next, put door seal back into place. Put a bead of caulk on the top edge of the new floor where door seal goes. Push the seal in place, and this forces the caulking down to form a watertight seal. Now use black caulk around the outside of that seal. Also caulk around the metal edges that were bent to allow entry to ensure that no leaks can occur. Smooth caulking with a blade for a nice appearance. Place a piece of tape to keep the surface from sticking to the door when the door is lowered back into position. Back to the sanitation compartment. Drill a hole in the bottom of the pan with a 3/4 inch Christmas tree bit for the drain hose. Place the hose through the hole and caulk from beneath. Step 14. Reinstalling the water pump. First, cut off old water band and hose. Put pump in place and reattach wiring with crimps as shown. Place crimp on the hose left hanging and attach to where old crimp was removed. Finish putting together with a crimp tool. Perform this operation on the other end. Test to make sure the water pump is working before attaching the final hose. Fasten the pump in place with 1-inch screws. Caulk around the red and blue hoses with white caulk. Remember, these were already caulked underneath. Now reinstall the door seal. This is done basically the same as the other side. Check the rubber around the hose drop to make sure it's all right. If not, replace. Now it's time to check for leaks in the tanks and the related systems. Attach a hose and push the control handle to tank fill. Fill the tank to a level above the drain valve to make sure there's no leaks there. Turn on all faucets inside the coach and check for leaks while water is running. Put down the passenger side tank door and replace the screws in the bottom. Then replace the furnace vents and now it's time for undercoating. Undercoating used at the Tiffin Service Center is a mixture of chemicals that, when applied under air pressure, appears to be a foam undercoating. If you are going to do limited repairs of this nature, we suggest you purchase 6 cans of Gunk Tight Seal Auto Body Undercoat. Use 6 cans on each unit you repair. It is as important to undercoat as nearly any other step in this operation. Note the curtains used on the sides during the undercoating. This is to contain overspray and is highly recommended. You should now have a coach with a successful wet floor replacement. If you have questions, call Tiffin Service Center at 256-356-0261 between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.